This month on the Key Figures podcast, Bright Obeng is joined by Erik Swerts, CEO of Alphabet Belgium and Luxembourg. Erik has been with the BMW Group since 2011, where he was appointed as COO for the Belgian market and acquired extensive knowledge in all areas of operational leasing and fleet management. Prior to this, Erik was Director of Operations at ING Car Lease, where he had held various operational roles since 1988. In this episode, we discuss various topics about the role of a CEO in a business environment undergoing radical changes. What does leadership mean to Erik? What leadership principles does he consider essential while performing his role as a CEO? And what key figures does he take into account? Please enjoy this podcast with Erik Swerts.
Hi, Erik.
Hi, Bright.
Welcome to the Key Figures podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's a real pleasure of having you on our show, and I really look forward to all the discussion that we'll be having. I always start with the same question. Who is Erik? What's your story?
That's, of course, a very good question, right? And also thank you for having the opportunity to share my thoughts and have the discussion we will probably have in the next half hour. But yes, I'm Erik, and I'm the CEO of Alphabet Belgium and Luxembourg. What is Alphabet Belgium and Luxembourg? Well, it's a company that is a mobility provider. I know it's a mouthful. But you have to know I'm already 57 years old. You wouldn't say, I know, but
absolutely not.
Thank you for the compliment. But I've been in this business for 35 years, and what started as a traditional leasing company, car leasing company, which in that time was something also completely new, because leasing has only developed quite recently to the scale of today. We see today more and more a change towards broader mobility solutions. So you can imagine that for a company like ours, like Alphabet, who is active in that mobility scenes, that brings along quite a lot of challenges. Why am I doing? Because that was your question. Why am I doing this? Well, because I honestly I'm fascinated. Already as a child, I was fascinated about everything which had to do with transport in a large sense of the word, whether it be boats or cars or planes. And I have been lucky enough to continue that passion in my professional life. It was not planned like that. It just happened like that. So I'm a very happy man. Yeah.
Great. We will dig much more into that later in this discussion. I would like to start with leadership, because that's one of the reasons I wanted to have this chat with you. What does leadership mean to you?
It's a very important question. First of all, a very complex question, and it contains, for me, the essence of what I have to do every day. What I mean with that is, it's very difficult to explain, I find. For me, leadership contains two kinds of ingredients. First of all, of course, the what I call the rational ingredients. Of course, it is about setting targets. Of course, it is about achieving objectives, etc., etc. But on the other hand, it is also the more emotional, the more value side of doing business that for me is absolutely important. It is not only about achieving what your ambitions are as a company, but it is also the way on how you want to do that.
If I can very quickly interject, sorry for interrupting. I think what might be of extreme importance is, can you talk a bit more about maybe the principle side of it? What are the principles? What are your guiding principles about leadership? Because you just made two quite interesting distinctions. That leadership is, you have the very hard side of it, if I can put it, and the more emotional side, but maybe underneath the baseline are the principles that you use. How do you see that?
Well, I'm a value-driven guy. So that is, for me, it already tells, I think, the basis of what your question is. So for me, the way on how we do business and how we achieve those objectives is key. Perhaps to tell you a story, what I often use internally also to new employees, for example, but also to customers, is I like to tell the story of why we are on earth as a company. Because we have, of course, I just told you in the introduction, we have an ambition of being, of course, leading in the mobility scene. But the reason why we do that is because we want to contribute in a positive way to the mobility of the people. People in the large sense, whether it be companies, whether it be other communities or individuals. And how we do that? Well, we do that by making the life of people easy when it comes to mobility. It sounds very simple, but it is hugely complex.
Absolutely.
And for me, that is the key of leadership, is bringing across that story. Not so much convincing people, because I don't like the word convincing, because it means that that I'm going to try to push you to believe in what I say. That is not what I try to do. I keep on repeating the story, sharing the thoughts of how I think we should evolve as a company in achieving that ambition and trying to get the people along. Is it always successful? No, of course not. It's not always successful. Does everyone always agree? No, not everyone always agrees. But if people then follow, whether it be customers, whether it be employees, whether it be other stakeholders, the bond is quite strong.
Absolutely.
But it's a way of I like to do it like that. I really like to do it like that.
Makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. I think being CEO of the company, you're probably your most trusted companion is obviously your full management team, but the CFO plays really an important role. There is a story that a lot of CEOs and CFOs, they are the last two people leaving the management, the meeting room after an important discussion. What are the things you look at selecting a CFO? Obviously, in my role as a headhunter in finance is extremely important for that, but I would like to get your view on that. What are the things you look at when selecting one?
Yeah, very good question. And indeed, the CEO, CFO, you know my CFO,
yes,
I think.
Absolutely. Very good one.
Don't tell him too much, but too often. But yes, absolutely right. But you also probably will notice this is quite different than who I am, and that touches, I think, the essence of what the selection is, and I can relate to it because I selected the CFO myself a couple of years ago, and of course there is of course he needs to know his trade, but that's easily. You can check that easily. Yeah? Sure. You have university degrees, etc. So between brackets, that's what I call the easy part. What for me was far more important, what CFO do I need as a CEO, because I know myself. Sure. I told you I'm in this business for quite a long time, which is of course a benefit, but can also be a disadvantage in certainly. So what I tried to look at was someone who was, I'm not going to use it in the real thing unless you say it's okay, who can kick my ass.
Yeah, sure. Yeah? You can do that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Because I know myself, I know my strengths, but I also know my pitfalls.
Yes.
You know? And I needed someone who was personality-wise comfortable in challenging me, also not afraid, even provoking perhaps sometimes, and you know my CFO, he's a bit of a provocative guy, yet the tandem works perfectly fine. And that, I'm very pleased with that. And of course you can say, you didn't take the easiest way. No, that's true. It's far easier to have a CFO who simply does what you say. Yes. I don't like that. I don't like that.
It really tells a lot about your leadership skills, both the hard side, the soft side, and also your baseline being principle and value driven, that you have so much emotional intelligence that you know where you need help, and that you're vocal about it. And that means that you are attracting people that are complementary in your management team to make the team a much stronger pack, if I may put it that way, navigating towards the objectives that you have. I'd like to switch gears on that, because I'm sure you as a CFO, you have a lot of things that you focus on. And I always say that the captain of a ship has a dashboard that has a few things on that you navigate on. What are these things for you? What are your key figures?
If I would sum it up briefly, I like to use the word relevance. I will explain in a second what it means. And the second one is people. Relevance, why? For me, you didn't ask the question yet, but the fourth R is relevance. For us, it is really important to be relevant, or to be seen as relevant by our customers, by our stakeholders. And of course, we are, even though value-driven, and even though we have a vision, a mission, etc., we operate in a real world, which is quite harsh, which has economical laws, etc. And relevance in our trade today is measured at the size of the company, the size in the sense of the fleet. It shouldn't be like that, but it is like that.
Okay.
So
it's literally market.
Literally,
market
so we are. Yes. Okay. How do companies work when they think about mobility? And you know, it's a market which is evolving more and more towards an international market.
Yes.
So the size matters. Okay. So what they do is, okay, we look for mobility outcome. Therefore, who should we approach? And then very often it is still as simple as that. They look, okay, who are the biggest players in the market, whether it be leasing companies or other mobility providers, and that's the people that are invited to discuss. So you have to first make sure that you get in that round. So that is why I don't like it, but it is like that, that the size is indeed relevant. So relevance, and what does it mean? Volume for us. Volume in cars, volume in contracts, volume in bikes, volume in everything, all products we have, and of course profitability.
Absolutely.
Our trade, we have in the leasing company, I don't know whether you're familiar with the leasing business. Yes. I always say growing volume is in our trade very easy.
Okay.
But doing it with profitability is a whole different story.
That's where you have
so that's the one
CFO
thing.
For.
And to finish the story, the second pillar is the people. And why do I mention people? Because we are a company, we don't make anything. We don't make anything. We only render services. And that is something you can't touch. We are part of the BMW Group. Sure. And of course that beautiful BMW you can touch and feel and you can love, and that will be probably the thing that appeals to you. We don't have that. We only offer a service, and service means an experience, creating an experience. I want you to be happy when you have had a call with Alphabet, regardless what your question is, regardless what the issue is that you were faced with. And how do I achieve that? By making my people happy.
Can I interject on that? How, in that respect, do you put a lot of emphasis on Net Promoter Score?
Yes, we do. Okay. Yes, we consider it as an instrument, indeed, to measure where we have to. Honestly, it's more like that. You tend not to look at what goes very well, but you look at the topic. Says, okay, this feedback, we should do something with it. And of course, you see different kinds of reactions. Some of them are incidental and need to be solved on an individual basis. But you also have recurring issues, and then we try to solve it in a structured way in order to progress all the time.
Sure. Okay, makes sense. What are the core themes that you are focusing on now? Because there are quite a few going on, and I really want to know what the core themes are for you.
We are in I said it already. The world around us is changing, and it's a cliche, I know. But when we talk mobility, it really is like that. And of course, I know that today that might appear a bit shaded because of Corona. All of a sudden, all our mobility challenges appear to be gone, which is not the case. They are still there, but they are hidden. They will be back once we can all travel again. So what we are focusing on at the moment is two things. First of all, what I just said, the traditional car leasing business, because regardless of what people say and think, the coming years the car will remain key in everything which is corporate mobility. It's not going to disappear. It's going to lose its autonomy, but it is not going to disappear. Of course, when we talk about car leasing, we talk about a commodity, because you can have exactly the same what we do at another company. So the only distinction we can make is through the experience we create. So that is the one pillar. The second pillar is the more innovative side of the business, where we look broader than the existing car leasing solution. Mobility is changing, and you know why it is changing? Because yesterday, every company you went to, when you talked about mobility, you talked about cars. Because why was it? Because every need on mobility, the best solution was by definition the car. Always, I'm talking about national needs and not international needs. Today, you enter into a world or into a scene where that is no longer the case. So you see that the demand, the requirements of customers when it comes to mobility are changing. They see that the solution of offering, for example, to all their employees a company car is over. We even have employees who don't want a company car.
Yes,
so that are trends that are really changing. It is our role, if we want to contribute, like I said in the beginning,
and stay relevant.
Yes, stay relevant. And if we want indeed to play that role that we play today, being a positive contributor, positive and leading contributor to that mobility, to those mobility solutions, we need to adapt. So what we see, that other pillar, which is on the innovative side, is finding new and different solutions. But we are not the only ones who are doing that. So everyone is doing that. And you also see, that's a nice thing. I like that, honestly. It's a personal thought. But no one really knows how the mobility scene tomorrow will look like. No one knows. Not even us, who are specialized in this. So everyone is trying, and some of things are successful today, other ones are failing, and we will see. And that is our second pillar, is that being that innovative by listening very carefully, because that's of course the key. What are the needs? How are the needs evolving at our customers in order to develop new products?
Makes sense. I always say that each leader needs to focus on 3 R's. You have revenue, you have recruitment, and you have retention. And I think one of the things that really triggered me was that you mentioned relevance is important for you, but also people are important for you. The 3 R's that I just mentioned, actually we can add a fourth R, which is relevant.
Exactly.
But if we go back to the first 3, how do you see this? And number 2, how do you keep your management team sharp on these 3 things?
To start perhaps with retention and recruitment, because
my
of course,
one.
I can imagine.
For obvious reason,
I can imagine. But it is also, honestly, today in our company a very hot topic, because as you know, the market today is quite challenging when it comes to finding good people, because everyone seems to be looking for the same people, so it's not making our life easy. So honestly, today, if you ask me the question today, my focus is on retention. We have good people, we have very good people. Unfortunately, this is also known in the world around us. So this is we can't keep it a secret, which is a good thing, but of course in these times not necessarily a benefit if you look at it from that angle. So we are trying to keep our people in our company. We have a completely developed employee engagement program, because of course also their times are changing, and impact on people's lives are also changing. And for many people, the way the world is working today, or companies are working today, which is quite volatile, agile. I mean, you all know those words. The only certainty is that everything is uncertain, etc., etc. We are. That's really a key element also in our approach on retention, is to try to make people comfortable with the fact that we live in an environment which will be continuously changing in the future. By nature, people are often quite reluctant or afraid even sometimes when you talk, or when they think. Very often it's thinking that things might change. So employee engagement is probably too far to go in depth to that.
It's part of it. It's very, very important.
So that is the first one. Are we always successful? No, unfortunately not. We are not, just like some other companies, also confronted with good people leaving the company, and then of course the other one, the recruitment, becomes key. And of course, next to the technicalities of recruiting, because again, that's for me. There is science enough to do that right, but I come back to what I said in the beginning. What I try to do, because I really believe it is also the best way to attract the right people, is to really tell the story of Alphabet, but including the challenges we also face as a company. So an authentic, genuine story about the journey we are making in that changing mobility world, which by definition comes along with challenges, with uncertainties. We don't know everything yet, we really don't. But if you want to be part of that, I invite you to join us. That is a bit the story.
I'm so happy you put this forward, Erik, because being honest about the culture of a company, compared to the culture that you want to project, people feel that. And if within your recruitment process or retention process, people willing to join your company get the opportunity to feel that during that candidate experience, it is so powerful. So I'm very happy you mentioned that. The last R.
Yes,
which is revenue. No.
I forgot. Yeah, revenue, of course. Yes, of course. It's a different kind of R, I would say. When you said revenue, I was wondering why is revenue on that list? Because my first reflex would be profitability rather than revenue. Of course, in our trade, and I don't know whether it came from that, but in our trade, indeed, revenue defines the potential profitability that you will make. So yes, of course, our biggest challenge is finding, first of all, that or linking that first R, which is the relevance, to that other R, the revenue. Again, relevance alone, knowing that it is measured by the outside world on the size, fleet size, bike fleet size, whatever you want, is quite easy. Yeah, revenue as such is also easy, but the combination of two is the biggest challenge. There is another dimension which makes this even more challenging, and that is what we just talked about, the new mobility. Because of course, let's be honest, a transformation phase is also a phase of innovation, is a phase of being creative, thinking about solutions. Some of them work, some of them don't. And if you look at the scale today, we are in the phase where mobility as a topic is really increasing. The awareness around mobility is increasing constantly. But if we look at reality today, we still see that mobility needs are still mainly fulfilled with the traditional solutions. So also there we need to make sure that all those powers or all those pillars interact in a correct way.
Makes sense. I'd like to focus a bit more on you now.
On me? Sure, people want to know that?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. What books have you gifted the most?
Yeah, I know. It's a question that is also asked to me very often. If you want to talk about me, I told you I'm value driven, so that could. I'm a feeling type perhaps, but in those things I'm mostly quite rational. Okay. I read quite a lot of books, all of different kind of things, not necessarily all business related, also historically related. You can learn a lot of. I like to read and to learn. And if you ask, okay, what books have you given? Depends upon who I give it to.
Of course.
I look at that. But in those things, I'm quite rational. What I mean with that is I don't believe if I read a book and. I don't know whether you ever did the check, probably you did because you're also in the trade. And if you look back a couple of years later to what was stated in that book, you probably will see that about half of it is outdated or not true, etc. And which is also okay. It's not the point. It's the point of being inspired, taking out what you think. Okay, this is something I can use and I can eat. So if you look. And of course, I have the benefit of being 57, which gives me quite some years of exercise. But if I look back, I always say, honestly, it's a joke, but I will know how to live when I die. And that probably is a combination of life experience and everything you on the way have read, have experienced, etc. Sure. So we need, honestly, a second life to do it right.
Okay, I love that. Every person will read a book in a different way depending on where they are in their life. If a 32-year-old CEO is listening or looking at this interview with you, he or she might take different things than a 57-year-old CEO.
Yeah, that could be, yes, that could be, absolutely.
But nevertheless, each book also inspires people in a different time and a different way.
That's also why I prefer to look at live quotes. I know it's not the same as a book.
Give me one.
Well, I use a lot of quotes. People who in the office know that, and sometimes too, because the benefit of a quote is that it brings across very strong, if you find the right one, what you want to say. It's sometimes very difficult if you talk, for example, about leadership. It's not so easy to explain in your own words how you feel that leadership should be. I have many quotes, but the one, it was, by the way, until recently also downstairs on the wall, was if you want to go, you can already imagine what it's gonna come.
Yes.
If you want to go fast, you go alone.
Sure.
If you want to go far, you go together. I really, really believed in it, and I hope that is also what came across in the interview. I do believe in the strength in everything, whether it be in a company, whether it be in life in general, the strength of teams, the strength of combining individual. If you can achieve an environment, which we also try to do in this company, which is, with a non-sexy word, a vulnerable. I know it sounds a bit weak. Many people don't like the word vulnerable. I find it to be a
very powerful word.
Yeah, me too. But it is, you feel that it is, so, but it is absolutely key. I try to create a vulnerable environment, not because it sounds good. No, because I want people to be able to be themselves without any limitation. I want them to be able to say stupidities. It is all fine, because if I do that, then I also know for sure that their good ideas will come. Yes. So it's not because of that vulnerability, but it is just to create an environment that allows people to express themselves. And if you combine that then with complementary people, so things attracting people that you are not, for example, on that first line, but also on the other levels, then you really can come to great things. And honestly, I also think we talked about retention being a challenge, which is absolutely true. It's also, by the way, something which suffers now in Corona, because you miss exactly that. Yes. You can't replace that through virtual contacts. You can technically replace it, but you cannot emotionally replace it. So that is, for me, I mean, really, I like. There are many, but this is one that I think.
Can you give me one more? Because I really like the first one, very, very strong.
Yeah, well, I just it's a quote of myself, is the one that I just used, and I mean what I say, in the sense that you will know how to live the day you die. What I mean with that is I try to be quite humble, in the sense that I don't think you never should overestimate yourself. I think that's really important, to keep all the time your feet on the ground, and also accepting, and which is fine, by the way, that you can't do everything right, and that you will make mistakes, that you can't do everything, it is expected, etc., etc. So, but what is absolutely true, I always say, I'm happy that you gave the example. I'm very pleased that I was not a CEO at 32.
Okay.
Because I don't think I would have been a good CEO at 32. Okay. In my case. Yes. Might be different for someone else, but not for me. I needed to be this age or a bit earlier to do this in the right way, because I needed all that, in my belief. It's a personal belief, but I needed all that experience and all that luggage to deal with it in a right way.
I don't like to use the word legacy in a way in my last question, but what kind of organization would you like to leave behind?
My first reaction when people talk about legacy, because it's also a kind of term which is used in bon ton, they say in French. So it's a word which is used in that. Legacy, in these things I'm quite rational. I want to be remembered, if you want to tell it like that. Because of who I am, because of what I did and the way I did it. I am someone who, and it's not always easy, because you live, of course, in an environment which is not necessarily in favor of what you think or what you believe in. Yeah? So I always think you should fight for what you believe in, regardless of the challenges that you face underway, regardless of what people might think about it, etc. So and I'm honestly not interested in having a statue of me here when I'm gone or dead or whatever. That I don't care. You should not, as one of the things also for me very important is, don't take yourself too seriously. Yeah? It's important to take your job seriously and your responsibility, but don't take yourself too seriously. Mm-hmm. So if I want to be remembered, I would like to be remembered, Erik, special times, it was really Erik. So, and probably it's not all good, and probably there are mistakes, undoubtedly, but at least they were my mistakes, they were authentic, they were my ideas, etc. Yeah. I always say to people, it's a bit the same as when we talked about that vulnerable. Please make your mistakes, but make sure they are your mistakes, not the mistakes of someone else.
Yes.
Then it's fine. It's fine.
Erik, so thankful for your time. You have actually inspired me during this chat about how being honest, transparent, a team player really, really pays off. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for our podcast featuring our guest, Erik Swerts, and hosted by Bright Obeng. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the role of inspiring leadership within a successful multinational like Alphabet. If you would like to support this episode, please share your comments or review on LinkedIn. To catch all the latest from Key Figures, you can follow our account at Key Figures Recruitment. Thanks again, and see you next time.